The most important thing about giving advice is to avoid giving advice to people who don't want to hear it. I'm trying to make this video fast-paced and upbeat by basically not talking about myself. I do have experience living in Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Yunnan, and a few other places in Asia. But this video isn't about me. This video is about a bit of a cultural phenomenon, a pattern of people dropping out of university and moving to Thailand, quitting their jobs and moving to Thailand. And I think that's part of an even larger idealization of traveling in Asia in 21st century Western culture. And the West, in this sense, covers a lot of the world. When I was living in places like Laos and Thailand and so on, I met travelers, so-called travelers, from Russia, from Germany, of course, from the United States and Canada. And in a sense, they were all accepting this paradigm of the traveler as someone who is not a tourist and who is also not an immigrant. I think we use this word traveler to kind of evade the sense of responsibility that comes with the word immigrant or just migrant. If you met someone who migrated to your country just to hang out, just to waste time, just to lead a life of leisure, with no long-term aspirations or objectives, with just no intentions aside from living a life of self-indulgence because they have the money to burn, how would you regard that person? Now, it's very rare in most Western societies, in most societies around the world. Thailand is in a small minority of kind of destinations that have a large number of people there all the time who don't have a job, who don't really have aspirations to have a job, and even if they do, they're just holding down that job to kind of extend their vacation, their status as a so-called traveler, without making any of the sort of emotional, intellectual, and political commitments that come with really becoming an immigrant to another country, of taking on another society as your long-term home and taking on your own identity as a kind of permanent outsider within that society. It's not easy to keep track of what your motivations are for doing things as an adult, and that's partly because your motivations have to change as time goes on. Your motivations can change quite rapidly. If you make a decision to move to Thailand, to quit your job, to drop out of university, to radically suddenly change your life, and move to Chiang Mai, move to Bangkok, move to Thailand for whatever reason, what were your assumptions? What were your expectations? What were your motivations on day one? Once you've been there for 3 months, 6 months, probably you will have encountered a series of disappointments, a series of surprises, just things that didn't turn out the way you thought they would. It's very easy to lie to yourself at each juncture and say, oh, this is what I wanted, this is what I was looking for, or just to take up a new direction in response to opportunities as they present themselves and forget why you were doing it in the first place. Here in Victoria, I met a South Korean guy, and he was that rare example of a man of leisure. Apparently his parents were very wealthy, and, when I met him, I described myself in terms of my aspirations, in terms of what I'm doing here at the university and what kind of employment I'm looking for, in terms of the struggle of ordinary life for ordinary people. And with the exception of close personal friends, a lot of us describe ourselves that way. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying to do. Life is a struggle. And, I'm not on vacation. Back when I was living in Thailand and Laos, I was never on vacation. And, it was strange for me to talk to this South Korean guy, where his responses, his answers, how he describes his life, has to do totally with self-indulgence and dissipation and wasting time and wasting money. He doesn't have a job. He described himself as somebody who never had a job. He's not looking for a job. He's not planning to have a job or a career. He was taking courses at the university, but just to pass the time. He doesn't try to get good grades. He never wants to get a more advanced diploma. He is living that life of leisure. And he may be a smart guy. He may be a nice guy. But it is hard not to regard him as a scumbag. If Thai people meet a Westerner in Thailand, and that's how they see you, and if you really stop and think about it, maybe that's who you are. Why shouldn't those Thai people regard you as a scumbag too? At least by default, it makes a lot of sense. Before you make that move, you should already be studying the Thai language. And you should already be reading the newspaper from Thailand in English every day. And that is advice I would give, mutatis mutandis, to a Chinese immigrant who told me that they wanted to move from China to Canada. Nobody thinks twice about that. Oh, you're planning to migrate to Canada? Well, then you need to be studying English now before you go. Oh, you're planning to move to Canada? Well, you need to get familiar with the political and economic and social reality of Canada. Now, something as simple as reading the newspapers, it can change you. It can change your perspective of the society. It can change your perspective of yourself. It'll have you asking questions that you would have never thought to ask otherwise. And the newspapers in Thailand are censored. They are under government influence and government control. But nevertheless, there are little things that will illustrate the reality of what Thailand is. And in 2015, Thailand is a military dictatorship. And you should care about that if you want to migrate to Thailand. And if you don't care about that, and you read the newspaper every day for a while, and you just don't care, then you shouldn't move to Thailand. You should look at that big, colorful map of the world and choose somewhere else to move to where you do care about the people, the politics, the economy, the culture, the history, whatever it is. Why not South Korea? Why not Saudi Arabia? Throw a dart at the map. In theory, the airplane ticket is going to cost about the same amount to go almost anywhere. What are your motives? Thailand right now has this strange place in the Western imagination as supposedly offering a sort of cheap life of luxury. Not really a place between places, but a paradise for rent. I remember reading in the newspaper a description of a failed assassination attempt against one of the local governors in Thailand. And, the guy was driving his truck. He saw a food vendor by the side of the road that he especially liked. And he impetuously pulled over his truck to the side of the road and jumped out of the driver's seat to buy whatever kind of food it was, soup or something, I don't know. And a bomb went off onto the driver's seat of his truck, and he would have died if he hadn't gotten out at just that moment. Little things. Reading the newspaper, even reading a censored, government-controlled newspaper, little things will clue you into the social reality of what Thailand is in the 21st century. And I say that as somebody who, in some ways I can say I love Thailand, and in some ways I can say I hate Thailand. And that's what it's like to care about a country. There will be both. There will be things you respect, and there will be things you despise. And there will be positive things that motivate you to be there, and there will be negative things that scare you. Apart from the newspapers, I spoke to people face to face who had witnessed assassinations, including political assassinations within Thailand. I remember one guy describing to me the strange sight of the police with a garden hose washing the blood off the sidewalk a few seconds after someone was shot to death. A political figure, a minor political figure, was shot. And it's very likely that whole assassination was arranged by the police. That was up in Isan, northeastern Thailand. My point is not that political violence is the whole of what Thailand is. And my point is not that you can't be indifferent to it. I think, if you want to, you can move to Israel and ignore the violence, ignore the political problems, ignore the economic problems. If you want to, you can move to Saudi Arabia and ignore all those problems and never read the newspaper and take no interest in the outside reality of the world. But if so, you're choosing the wrong country. I think this is fundamental to why Thai people, by and large and in general, regard Western tourists as scumbags by default. If you go to a foreign country just to live in luxury, then you are a scumbag. And keep in mind, luxury means different things to different people. For some people, a life of luxury means living on a yacht. For some people, it means sex, drugs, alcohol. For some people, it means gambling, it means going to the casinos. For some people, it means swimming at the beach. Yeah, for some people, a life of luxury is just a kind of dissipated life of maybe riding your bicycle up a mountain, going swimming, eating fancy food. I'm not insinuating that everyone should be motivated by humanitarian interests or research interests. I know I'm in a small minority of people anywhere in the world and everywhere in the world who is really motivated by those things. But you should not be surprised that people in Thailand regard you as a scumbag, when the objective reality of why you're there and what you're doing there really is a life of dissipation, self-indulgence, cheap luxury, easy pleasures. And it's a little too easy for people to hide that behind vague words like lifestyle. And, even this use of traveling, of being a traveler. What are you really? If you meet someone and they really have no ambitions, they have no aspirations, they just want to live a life of self-indulgence, permanent vacation, how do you feel about them? And if that's you, if that's who you really are, and that's the life you're really living, how do you feel about yourself?